Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror film, and they discuss it. Today, we're talking about 1989's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, which was directed by Stephen Hopkins. I'm your co-host, Alec.
I'm Eric, and with us is just an everyday, awesome guy, Andy Danish. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. I like chatting with you guys.
I know, Andy. This is like your fifth time, right? Something like that, right?
Yeah, 5, 10. Who's counting anymore?
Yeah, we do have a couple guests that are like, "This is my 28th time."
Yeah, they take it way too serious. It's like, I relax. It's like, I'm competing with Matt. Like,
yeah. But actually, really quick, I am so curious, Andy, why you chose this one. You know, there was a lot of movies on here. There's also another Nightmare movie, but you specifically chose this one, so I am like super curious why.
I remember when I first really... Because I remember growing up and younger watching the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels out of order. So I didn't watch them like 2, 3, 4. 5 was actually the first one I remember watching before I watched 3 and 2, then 4, then New Nightmare. And I remember I first watched it late night on TV, on like late night on TV. It was like TNT or TBS or something. And it was one where, because it was the first sequel I watched, I think I enjoyed it a lot at the time. And I remember the kills were pretty grotesque in it. So the kills really stood out to me, like the one where the girl whose mom wants her to be a model is like having her cheek stuffed and then like she gets killed at the table. That one stood out to me a lot.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like these movies, especially like I'd say like 4, 5, and 6, they just blend together so much that like I don't know which ones are which if I was just seeing random clips. But this one does have its moments, and apparently this one was horrifically edited by the MPAA. So they're like, the kills that you're mentioning apparently are very tame compared to what they were actually. So we can get into that a little bit. But Eric, you had seen this, I mean, when we were kids, we definitely watched this, but you hadn't seen it probably in what, like 20 years?
Yeah, I'd say like since I was 11, like 20-ish years, which is crazy to say out loud. But yeah, no, it's you can feel the Freddy, like, it peaked. Like, hey, like, we're kind of Nightmare peaked, last time. And then this is kind of like, we're kind of milking that cow a little much. And I want to just run by, so the first one came out in 84, second one 85, third one 87, fourth one 88, and this one 89. So they had 3 Freddys in 3 years. And this is this is 89, and it's the last one of the 80s, and actually one of the last slashers of the 80s, which is kind of cool. But you can feel the Freddy fatigue, as I'll say,
Well, it's not even just that, too. It's like, I actually watched, actually, really quick, Andy, have you seen the documentary, like the Nightmare on Elm Street, like 4-hour documentary where they go through every single film? Have you seen that?
I haven't, unfortunately.
Oh, you gotta watch it. It's on YouTube. It's absolutely amazing. But anyway, so I watched the section on this movie last night, and in between 4 and 5, all they do is talk about is Freddy Mania, the Freddy Nightmare TV show, just exactly what you were just saying, Eric. Like, the fatigue was real.
Dream Master, which was number 4, which we just did on the podcast, $6.5 million budget and made $50 million. This one came out a year later, $8 million budget, so a step up a budget, but only made $22 million. And we're talking, This is when Freddy merchandise is at an all-time high. There's like a television show coming out called like Freddy's Nightmares or something. Like, Freddy is hot. But I think people were kind of turned off by this one. Maybe they just didn't go see it twice because it was so convoluted. And like you mentioned, the editing process, it sounds like a nightmare. And one thing I read too is I feel like they went into this without a full concept idea, and they had too many producers, editors, issues with, you got to cut the MPAA telling them you're going to get an X rating if you don't calm this down, and so they had to like cut scenes, and I guess it was such a big mess of a film to make, and it just didn't really have the concept at the start. It was like kind of like, hey, we're going to do like this baby thing. It's going to be like a really dark take on Freddy. And then it kind of like goes from there. It kind of felt like the sequel trilogy to Star Wars, where it's like we have the first one, we figured we have the first one, and then like we'll figure it out from there. It's like that's how this movie felt like it just didn't really have the concept fully fleshed out.
I agree, and I also think to add to that is I think these were the movies that they were trying to push the more funny Freddy aspects of it, because like he started being more of a funny Freddy in part 3 because he had like the whole "Welcome to prime time, bitch" line that he like
Totally.
ad-libbed. And then I think in 4 they kind of leaned more into him being goofy and clownish, and then I think they kept trying to roll with it into 5, and I think it was one of those things where they just shifted course with their take on Freddy, and I think it was just it was too much. I think too much funny Freddy, and it took away from like him feeling like a threat. And I know that that's why I think, because I at one point it's funny, I even couldn't remember which 4, you were talking about all of them blending together. I was like, wait, which one is Dream Master? Which one is the Dream Child? I thought it was the other way around. I always thought like, oh wait, 4 is the Dream Child. What's the 5th one called?
I mean, it technically is a trilogy too, right? The Dream trilogy. Aside from Warriors, which is a little different, but that brings in the same character. Yeah, no, it's all the Dream trilogy for sure, right?
Yeah, because I think it spirals off of the main characters from part
Warriors.
3.
Yeah,
From Warriors.
And Amanda Kruger, they introduced that whole subplot in that film.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then this one they kind of fleshed that out a little bit more. That was probably my favorite part, is them doing that callback to Amanda Kruger and the 100 Maniacs and that whole scenario. I liked that part. I did like that.
Andy, can't agree with you more that like it's just like, what do people want? They want Freddy one-liners, they want gory kills, they want some humor here and there, and maybe some hot chicks. Like that's what everyone wants when they go see a Freddy movie. And like literally picture this, like a bunch of like executives in the 80s like coked out of their minds and being like, and then he says, "It's a boy," and it's like, oh my god, let's do another line. And like that one joke it feels like that was like the whole like, we're doing this movie for the one "it's a boy" joke, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, and I think that I could tell they were just wrapping their brains about like, how do we bring him back after the way they killed him in part 3? Like literally throwing holy water on him, making him evaporating. Like, all right, we bring him back from the dead by being born through another woman who somehow is infected with the ghosts, and all of a sudden he's reborn in a church, and and that's the movie. That's how the movie starts.
It's hard. It's hard to keep up with too, and like we could walk through the whole story, Alec, if you want to, like we normally do. But it's just like there's so much. Like first it goes here, then it goes to Jacob, then it goes to the nun, and it's like, oh, what do we like the asylum? And it's like, oh, like so much going on, and it's so convoluted.
Yeah, I mean, there's not as many kills as a payoff. I mean, if there were like more kills in it, I think it would justify it a little bit more. Like if there was like, because there's like not even 5 in it. There's like what, 3 kills?
There's less kills in this than any other Nightmare on Elm Street movie. There's 3. The original had 4, and they've all upped it since then, but this one had 3. Yeah.
What? You think they'd pump up those numbers, right?
And the kills are good. They're good kills. The motorcycle, the girl getting fed to death, the comic book one, like they look cool, but there's only 3.
That is the 3. You're right.
Yeah, because the girl who goes in the swimming pool or whatever, she survives, and then Alice survives, and then they just drop this plot line. They're like, we're done, we're moving on. And it was like, I don't know. Yeah, so basically in Dream Warriors, they set up the plot of like Freddy kind of needs a conduit to like, kill all of the person's friends or family or whatever, and then they follow that into Dream Master and then Dream Child, and I like Alice. Alice really grew on me. And Joe said last time when we were doing this, he's like, she's probably the lead protagonist aside from Nancy. And I was like, I didn't really agree with that then. But now watching it, I'm like, she's the only one that's fought Freddy twice and beaten him twice. And she survives. She gets away with it. There's no resolution to her character arc in the next one. So good for her. I don't know. And she's hot as shit. She is hot as shit in this one.
And that counts.
Well, we were talking about it on the last one. We're like, did she just like get hotter throughout the whole movie? And then this one, they're like, listen, she's just gonna be hot the whole time this time.
And she was in that MILF Manor show or whatever, Alec, we were talking about last.
Yeah, you love that show.
I watched maybe 30 minutes of it with Shannon, and we shut it off just because we were fascinated by it, and it was the most cringeworthy thing I've ever seen. I didn't even realize I was watching her at the time when I was watching it too, but oof. That was bad.
Yeah, she's on a reality show now, Andy, because she's like super hot still. She's on a show called MILF Manor.
Where they bring on like the moms and then they bring in the kids, but they don't tell them like you're also going like you're going to be dating a bunch of young kids, you're going to be dating a bunch of milfs, but they're everyone else's mom and kids, and it's like, oh god, this is horrible. But it has its moments. But I watched half an episode.
Yeah, it's just crazy that that's where her career kind of led to.
That's where we are. That's where she is. That's what she's doing.
Originally her character was played by Patricia Arquette in 3, right? Or
this is a different character.
Character, yeah.
Yeah, so Patricia Arquette was her in 3, and then Tuesday Night replaced the character. I can't remember her name. Kristen. And then Alice became the new Kristen, basically, in 4 and 5. So,
and they get rid of Kristen pretty early in the 4th one, so it's like Alice is 4 and 5, pretty much.
Yeah,
like hard. Yeah. Like she's the main character.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, this is the problem with these 3 films is like they introduce all these characters and then the ones that survive get killed immediately as the new one starts. And then we have to learn all these new characters. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about the comic book guy or the hot model or the swimmer. I'm like, these are all just disposable personality traits, just like in the one before the last 2. I mean, you remember, Eric, we just covered all these, like the friggin' nerdy guy in Dream Warriors who's like, I like D&D or whatever. And then you got the girl that works out in the 4th one. They all have their very basic traits and they kill everybody off. I don't like it. I like consistency.
It's funny. I think the other friend, Yvonne, was it?
Yeah, the one who survives.
Yeah, the one who survives. I remember she says at the start of the movie, like, oh, I have swimming practice. And I remember like saying in my head, like, oh, I'm guarantee you're going to die in a swimming pool. But she doesn't.
Yep.
Like...
Yeah, but then the guy that loves comics and like, that guy, yeah.
All over the place with this one. I mean, do you want to walk through the plot really quickly, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It basically picks up a year after the last one. They're all graduating high school. Alice and Dan are still together. Alice gets pregnant from Dan, which that sucks. Like 18. And then Freddy comes back, possesses Alice's unborn baby, uses the nightmares that the fetus is having to then use that power to kill Alice and all of her new friends. Who somehow don't know anything about Freddy Krueger, and Alice is still like, yeah, I'm just going to go to high school and everything's fine or whatever. But yeah, I mean, after that, then it's just basic Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's killing people, picking off the friends one by one. They're trying to, the Alice is like, hey, you guys got to believe me. Nobody believes her. Then they start getting killed. They're like, okay, I believe you. And the main thing that comes back is Freddy Krueger's mom, Amanda Krueger's a nun. She comes back, and they need to use her and bring her body back by touching it, apparently.
Yeah, I know. Like that's all you have to do is just literally like a gauntlet game or like a video game. Just like touch the remains. That's it.
Yeah, but the thing that I didn't love is there's a little kid who's kind of like a ghost kid the whole time who's Alice's future son who somehow is like Freddy's baby now too because I don't know, Freddy possessed it or whatever. So then the baby is in the future but is able to come back and talk to Alice. It got very convoluted.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember seeing that kid. I was like, fuck's that kid from? I was like, I know this kid, and I was like, I had to Google
Jurassic
it.
Park.
Yep, the kid that Sam Neill traumatizes at the beginning.
Yeah, and really quick about him, it's kind of sad, but so apparently his dad died while they were filming this movie. And I got to see him in the interview, and he was just like, honestly, like, I was so happy that I got this movie because everybody on set was so nice to me, and they, like, knew what was going on, and everybody was just, like, very friendly, and he said he had such a good experience on the film, and he was happy to have that distraction, which, I don't know how I'd feel, but he was happy about it.
No, good for that. I mean, I'm happy that everyone... I mean, it sounds like, dude, these are fun movies to make. I mean, aside from...
Oh, yeah.
The bullshit with editing and the MPAA that they dealt with. It sounds like, I think there's interviews where Robert Englund says like one of his favorite scenes he's ever filmed is when they're in the asylum and he's with like 200 extras and it's the first time he's ever seen a drone, like not drone, but like camera jib that's above him. And he's like, this is so cool. Like I'm in like really quality movies. Like it was cool to him. And he says that's like one of his favorites, at least from this movie.
It seemed like also, from what I saw, Robert Englund, like, he was somebody that people liked working with, and he really, like, enjoyed the role, and he's, like, he wasn't a jerk on set, so it's always a bonus when you have people who play high-profile roles who actually happen to be nice people.
Also in makeup. You usually hear people in makeup just be miserable and be like, let's go, I'm dying, but he seems like one of those guys. He's like, yeah, I'm burning up in this mask latex, but I'll stay here another 8 hours.
I mean, so many people had to put latex on for this one.
Yeah.
Got the Greta with her big face. And then even at the end, Alice turns into Freddy for a second. She's got the Freddy makeup on.
Or it was Jacob, right? The kid had it on.
He had it too. But Alice like got possessed. She looked like Evil Dead for a second. But there's one scene too right at the end. You know like how Alice and Freddy are like, sucked together and they're like, pulling each other apart. You guys remember that scene at the end?
Yeah.
Yes.
Weird. They were like making out kind of. I don't even remember. It blurs.
Well, apparently the only way they were able to film that is they had to get a Vietnam vet who had his legs blown off, and he was able to like rig his body onto Robert Englund and play that part because they couldn't figure out how to have that happen. So they had to get an actor that didn't have legs to play that. And I was like, damn, that was kind of an interesting tidbit, I thought. But yeah, that was interesting to me. And then also, I gotta say, of all, because they don't carry over the characters that you're supposed to care about, and they don't have character arcs or anything like that, but who did was the dad in this movie. He had a full-blown character arc recovery. You remember him, Eric, from the fourth one?
Total horrific, abusive alcoholic to like the most nurturing.
Yeah, John Saxon, right?
No, not
that. Yeah. Go out.
The dad from this one, the guy who's like shows up at the graduation, he's like, I didn't think they'd want the town drunk showing up. That guy?
Yeah.
So in part 4, he's like a huge asshole. He's just like, what is this rabbit food you're cooking me? This is bullshit. And he's just freaking out at his daughter and his kid, and he's an alcoholic and all this stuff. But this one, they brought the same actor back.
They kept the story. They kept the story with like, oh, he's in recovery and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like you're going to your meetings. Like they have but he's the good guy at the end. He stands up for his daughter. Like I was like, Jesus Christ, why couldn't you guys do this with the characters from the third one? Just carry them over for these 3 movies and have their characters develop just like this guy.
That's what my take, dude. Like I like looking at this as like time machine wise. Like I really wish they dove into Dream Warriors more and like the powers that they have. And kept that going. Like I love the strong guy from. They immediately kill him off in 4, and it's like, all right, well, I really liked him. I wish they kept the Dream Warrior thing going for another movie, at least. But that's my take.
Me too. Turn him into like an Avengers series.
I mean, not. Hey, if you could go back, you could make a lot of money if you take that from Marvel right about now, and people would dig it. People would absolutely love that shit. I'm sure. Yeah,
because like Nancy and oh my god, Laurie from Halloween, like that's what makes you invested is seeing. Oh, and like the Scream movies, like that makes sense because the characters you grow with them as they face these new challenges. But these movies, and same with Friday the 13th, everybody's disposable, so you just like don't care.
But also, we lose the not lineage. What's the word? The connection between Nancy and the Dream Warriors, because the Dream Warriors met Nancy. And she dies at the end of 3. Technically, and once Patricia Arquette / Wednesday Night's character dies in 3 or 4, it's like, well, no one remembers who Nancy is, so we lose that Nancy aspect to it. You know what I mean? Where it's like you can picture like them fighting Freddy someday, and it's like Aragorn like for Nancy, like, but no one knows who Nancy is.
I know. They really dropped the ball there. They were just like, people just want to see boobies and funny jokes. It's like, no. We want character development, too. Like, guys, Rob Shea, come on, buddy.
It also felt like because Friday the 13th was pumping out like one every year during the 80s, I think the Nightmare on Elm Street series wanted to be like, all right, we got to keep one every year, too, because they're coming out with one every year. So that's how, that's the ticket to success, is just make as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you said, I think that the character consistency would have been good if they fleshed out each character like having special powers within the dream world and having that be like the consistent premise for each of the movies. But then, they swap characters out, and then once they get to Freddy's Dead, there's like a whole swath of all new characters for a movie that's supposed to be like so conclusive, and it's supposed to be like, wow, this is the one where Freddy actually dies and gets killed, and there's all these characters in it who you don't really know and have no investment in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, the psychologist, she's Freddy's daughter, whoa, and it's like, where the hell has she been all this time?
Yeah, that's what I think the series suffers from the most, is just not making us care about the characters and then introducing new ones that you're like, I don't even fucking care. So But yeah, I mean, all that aside, the positives I think are definitely the kills. Like that's definitely of the three that there are. That one's really cool. Love Amanda Kruger coming back. I thought that was really interesting. Didn't love the music in this one, Eric. That was something we talked about specifically.
I disagree. I like
What?
the music. I like the music. I don't think the music was that bad.
There's no music.
There's music. You like when he goes into the cartoon world and you hear like ding 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 ding.
Oh, I don't mean the score. I mean like the soundtrack. Like they're
the sound like with the score is good.
The score's not that good either. The score is literally like, dude, it's the Taco Bell dong like
pretty
the
much.
movie.
But I think it really does carry some scenes though. It really does. Aside from that, You're absolutely right. The soundtrack. We're not hit any good hits. No,
dude, nothing.
They were trying to save on the budget. Maybe I don't.
Dude, we were talking about this, Andy. In the fourth one, you've got Billy Idol, you've got Blondie, you've got the Divine. Like there was like 15 really solid bands on that album, and they played in the movie. This one, I don't think there was one song aside from the like weird rap at the end and during the credits. And then also there was no like
There was quite a bit.
Was there?
There was quite a bit.
What, didn't they do a remix of that in like the credits or something? They did like a techno disco remix.
I didn't stay around for the credits too much. I'm not gonna lie.
I thought it was a rap. I thought it was like Freddy's back and he's here to say like I'm gonna kill you in your dreams today. Something like that's what I thought it was.
Maybe, but you're absolutely right, Alec. I didn't even recognize that there is no music. It's just the composing in the score.
Yeah, so also I need to talk about this scene because I was like, okay, I know this movie's an hour and 25 minutes long. It's not very long. But the scene where Alice comes home and Dan's parents are there and they're like, you're not mentally able to handle the kid. We talked to the doctor. We're going to take him. That went nowhere. Like, what was that scene for? We never see those people again. Why would they just blindly believe that doctor, and then be like, well, that's the authority. That's all the authority we need is that one doctor saying that because you had all of your friends and your fucking boyfriend died this week and you're a little distraught, so you're not a fit parent.
It seems like that's all it is they're trying to make the stress on her, like she's starting to lose it and people aren't believing her. So it like puts the pressure on her, like I really need to defeat Freddy in order to keep my baby, which is like it's kind of dumb. And like you said, that you see the one scene, it's like we want our baby, it's just as much as Dan is yours, and it's like that's the one scene.
And they have to write characters who are like, yes, like you said, they're the authoritative ones. And all grown-ups automatically know what's best for teenagers because teenagers don't know what they want. So you have to listen to us. And there's always been that dichotomy of like the grown-ups versus teenagers type of headbutting within all the series. So I think in that respect, it makes sense because you're kind of carrying over a theme of, like, adults know best and teenagers don't know anything. The teenagers like, no, you don't. The adults need to believe us. So I think it does carry that theme or that dynamic carries over consistently because that's always been a thing where it's like, no, nobody believes teenagers because they're just teenagers. So I think that's actually one of the things that's been consistent in the whole series.
That's true. That is true. All of the parents in Elm Street are horrible. They're usually alcoholics and usually just yell and don't listen. Like, you're right. That is consistent.
Yeah, and they're wrong. They're always wrong.
They're always wrong. Yeah. It's like none of them remember. I mean, like, literally, this is the 5th movie. So let's assume that, like, 5 people on average die in each movie. There's been 30 kids that have died in the last couple of years. Like, guys, believe somebody at this point. I don't know.
Get out of Elm Street, too. That street is no good.
Well, all right. Well, let me ask you this. Okay. This movie handles some subjects, definitely is like a pro-choice, pro-life kind of movie, and to a degree. I just got to say, though, you know what Freddy is. You know what he is. And that one comic book kid's like, have you ever thought about, like, get rid of it? And she's like, no, never. It's like, really? Because he's a demon that's killing, like, everybody. And it's like, and this is a way to stop him. I know it's Dan. It's your boyfriend of 1 year. He got you pregnant. I know. But, like, what are we doing here? Like, kill Freddy. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm pro whatever anybody wants to be. But, like, just, like, come on. There's a reason to do it here. I don't know.
I mean, you're right. It does handle heavy issues. It also does hint on, eating disorders with, the mom
Greta.
being like, you need to be thin. You need to be perfect. You can't eat any of this. And, of course, it needs to demonize the parents because the parents are, telling the children that they need to, be perfect and look slim so they can be a model. So,
well, I think those are things that were happening in our country at the time, too.
Oh, yeah.
Bulimia and anorexia was that was the thing, and
That's big now.
yeah, totally. So
Yes.
the body image has always been there, but like I feel like they're a movie that's delving into it.
yeah, it leaned into it much more in this one than in the other sequels. I think it definitely sort of like highlighted a character who was, having to deal with that specifically, or was like that was their character specifically in all the Nightmare sequels.
Yeah, and I read something about how this, like the baby idea, was kind of pitched for 4 instead of this one, which is 5.
No, it's 3 actually.
They pitched it for 3, but wasn't
Yeah.
like one of the executives pregnant at the time and like shot it the fuck down, like bad juju, like not doing that. No. Right?
All right, so I watched the documentary last night. What happened was one of the writers from 3 pitched the idea of, like, ooh, what if Freddy like possessed a baby, like an unborn baby, and they didn't like it then. And then actually it's the opposite. So there was a woman, I can't remember her name now, but she was one of the producers, and she was pregnant during the 5th one, and she actually thought that would be a good idea. So she called that writer back and had him come back for the 5th one. Yeah, he's like, I was laughed out of the room when I brought up the kid idea, and then a couple years later, they call me back and they want me to do the kid idea. Like, it's in the documentary.
I was not sure if I was right or not there, but that's wild that she was like, I'm pregnant now. Like, this is a good idea. We should do it. Like, it's wild.
She apologized because this movie, at the end of the documentary, at the end of this segment of the documentary, they're basically like, listen, it was fun, it was rushed, it was the lowest grossing film of any of the franchise, and she's like, I partly take blame for that because I think the heavy-handed issues of pregnancy and all that stuff, it was my idea because I was a pregnant mother at the time, and I pushed for it, and I don't think that was the direction to go. That's what she said, at least.
And I have a great quote from Stephen Hawkins, the director, while he was being interviewed from Predator 2. He directed Predator 2 as well. He said, It was a rushed schedule without a reasonable budget, and after I finished it, New Line and the MPAA came in, cut the guts out of it completely. What started out as an okay film with a few good bits turned into a total embarrassment. I can't even watch it anymore. So that just says a lot, like, about the issues this movie had. Like, I'm sure it was a good idea on paper. Everything was fitting good, feeling good. They had the money. Everything was okay, and then it just kind of fell apart as they went on.
Yeah, he said there was over 20 times that they had to go back and forth with the MPAA. And then he also said that he's like, I've directed a bunch of movies since then. This is one of his first features, but the director said, thinking about what we did on the budget we had and like looking at the dailies and being like, okay, so these are how many special effects shots we have to get today. He's like, that it would just never happen today. He's like, they were shooting for the stars and we actually got it done. He's like, but it wasn't great. But everybody was honest.
Yeah, one of my rules is when I hear like a big movie like Batman versus Superman, like for example, like, ooh, I really want to see that, and then I hear like they're doing reshoots. Or like Suicide Squad's doing reshoots, or trying to think of the
Snow White,
that, or what, like there was a few other. There was a mutant movie with like Arya Stark that I was like really into for a bit, and then
the Dark Phoenix one, right?
No, it wasn't that. It was a different one, and then
it's the one where they're at a school, the X-Men school.
It was like New Mutants or something. I think it was like supposed to be like these underground mutants, and I was like, ooh, I kind of like that idea, and I heard like reshoot, and I'm like, it's kind of like when a video game gets pushed too. It's like something's wrong, and that like whenever I hear like a movie does a reshoot, I'm always like, ooh, got a bad feeling about that. No, so I feel like that this is like one of those movies that like got torn up in the edit room, and it just messed it up.
I don't think I'm just trying to remember if there was like. If it was not on the box cover, like the Friday the 13th movies did this, but on the box cover they would like showcase kills or showcase gore effects that weren't actually in the movie. Like Friday the 13th Part 2 did this, I think, where they had a kill that actually like they had the effect on the box cover, but it wasn't actually in the movie itself. Like the effect, not the kill, but the the gore or the gore that was part of the kill. I don't think Friday the Nightmare on Elm Street did this, but I could be wrong about that. So at least it wasn't like misleading us at all.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, you'll see like on the box or something of a VHS, you'll be like, I don't remember that from the movie, or like the DVD like loading menu.
Yeah, that shit did happen. Yeah, and I'm sure there's tons of deleted scenes from this movie that are out there.
Well, Joe Testa has like the laser discs and the VHSs of everything, but apparently, yeah, the laser disc and the VHS of this have a much longer, gorier graphic version of all of the deaths. So
we get that feeling when like Greta's eating the food and he brings her that doll, and all of a sudden he cuts the doll, and it's just like something felt like you cut out something here, right? Did you get that feeling? So I don't know.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. Yeah. But, basically we're almost done with the series. We only have Freddy's Dead and then the remake, the 2010 remake. So we're getting there. We're almost done with Freddy.
2 more Freddy films. I was just going to ask, like, we also went out of order, Andy, too, with these movies.
Oh, yeah.
So
No worries. It's cool. I mean, whatever has more meat on the bones.
Yeah. One other deleted scene was when the comic book happens, and then Aha comes out and does a rendition of Take On Me.
Is that real?
No, but I mean, like that looked like a Take On Me kind of.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Well, also, dude, Super Freddy, fuck Super Freddy, dude. I hated that whole scene.
That was written on a Denny's napkin. That idea.
Yeah. Also, really quick, apparently the guy that plays Super Freddy, that was not Robert Englund, and then that was the guy who's the body double of that sex scene in the beginning during the credits. That's that guy's body. And he didn't know.
Wild.
And they asked him, they're like, do you want to do a sex scene? And he's like, as Super Freddy? They're like, no. You have a good body. Like, we're just going to shoot your body in a sex scene.
How much? Like $48.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, yeah.
But he didn't know. And apparently he got on set and they're like, dude, you got a good body. Like, do you want to do this? But
yeah.
Anyways, do you guys have any last minute thoughts here on the old Dream Child?
Yeah, I'll go first. Film lost me at the ultrasound. Scene. I was following, I was like, okay, cool, and then the ultrasound, I kind of lost my interest here. This is ridiculous. Music, the composing was good. Some really cool parts, but it just falls apart in my mind. But that's my take, generally.
Yeah. How about you, Andy?
I think this was, because I had watched the sequels out of order when I was younger, I watched this and I'm like, oh man, the other sequels probably aren't that great either. And then all the other ones ended up being better. So I was like, oh, okay. So, the whole series, most of the series, or at least half of the series, is pretty salvageable and entertaining. But it's just, I happened to watch the first of the sequels I had watched when I was younger, just happened to be the worst one. Or I guess you can argue between this and New Nightmare. Depends on what your taste is. But I guess that, and yeah, I guess I say this one, definitely I had to go from underwhelming to pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's all uphill from here pretty much. Yeah, the last thing, Eric, I doubt you'll ever remember this, but Chris Van Dusen, I remember, loved this one for some reason. We were in Latin class. He would always talk about this movie. He's like, oh, the baby cart flies in the air and crashes. And I remember him talking specifically about this one a lot. It's very random.
Well, that is random, but Chris was really into cinematography and shots. And like I just said, there's a lot of cool parts and good shots, but it just doesn't make for a good story. But if you watch some of these scenes, it's pretty impressive. When the church implodes at that one scene, how do they do that? The car crash was really good. The motorcycle scene, there's really cool things that happen, but it just kind of sucks. But that's probably why Chris likes it. Sorry, shout out Chris if you're listening.
And the last thing, Eric, obviously we're going to cover 6 and then the remake, but apparently that Freddy's Nightmares TV show, the pilot is apparently an hour-long episode about Freddy Krueger's court scene and what happens, how the parents burn him. It's a whole episode about that. So I kind of want to cover that too.
I think we should at least the first episode, because that kind of interests me about how the parents get probably pissed off at the justice system and take matters in their own hands, which that's kind of the story.
It's his legacy story.
He gets off, right? He gets off. And that's cool.
And literally the end of it is your troubles on Elm Street are only beginning, and then it ends and it's oh shit. So it's a prequel. It's a prequel to the original one, which I don't think a lot of people have really talked about. So
We got to, yeah.
All right, let's spin that old wheel, though.
All right, pulling it up. Ready? Spaghetti. Let's spin it. Frozen, not the Disney Elsa Frozen. This is a different Frozen.
It's a ski lift movie, and it's from the same director as Hatchet, so let's see what this guy has to offer when it's not Victor Crowley. But Andy, thank you so much for coming back on, and we'll definitely have you on again in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This is fun. Always fun.
Yeah, dude. We'll definitely, next time, I don't know, any movie catches your eye, just let us know. But otherwise, everybody, thank you very much for listening in to our discussion on A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, and we'll be back next week with Frozen.